headlines. Israel has targeted a high-ranking Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. Lebanese foreign minister tells Israel his country does not want to engage in a war. And President Biden reportedly said that the U.S. would not support an Israeli retaliation after it was attacked by Iran. A senior Hezbollah commander was killed in an Israeli strike in southern Lebanon today. In response, Hezbollah fired dozens of rockets at northern Israel. I-24 News' Robert Swift is there with the latest. Robert.
That's right. Following the attack against the Hezbollah commander, Hezbollah has launched a barrage of rockets, reported to be over 100, landing in areas around Kiryat Shmone. Now,
this war has been going on with some certain rules of engagement, but this is a war.
It's a war. It's a long war. It's a war of attrition by its characteristics. And here, the IDF has the upper hand. There's no doubt about it. But the price is just too high that I don't think Israel can absorb for much longer, which is the displacement of 60,000, 70,000 Israelis from their homes in the northern towns. So something will have to happen here. Everybody was looking and waiting to see a ceasefire in Gaza, but in the absence of that, I don't think that beyond September, Israel could really continue with the situation as is, as people would need to go back, or children to go back to their schools, to their nurseries. You cannot start. If families which are displaced from their homes in the north will have to send their kids to different schools.
The Lebanese foreign minister sent a third-party message to Israeli foreign minister saying his country did not want a war. The messenger was the Azari foreign minister, which brings us to Baku tonight. We have Fouad Shabazov with us, a security consultant at Caliber MMC Company. Good evening, and thank you for joining us from Baku tonight. First of all, why Azerbaijan was picked to deliver the message? Do you have any guess?
Well, thank you for having me. Actually, Azerbaijani state media does not usually issue such coverage regarding mediation diplomacy for obvious reasons, because the message from the Lebanese minister conveyed to Azerbaijani counterpart Ceyhun Bayramov is one of the signs of multi-vector diplomacy of Azerbaijan, I would say, because Azerbaijani diplomacy for the last 2 decades was based on a delicate balance between all regional parties, because given that Azerbaijan is one of the closest.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu plans to address a joint session of Congress on July 24th. This is when his relationships with U.S. President Biden are at all-time low. I-24 News' Mike Wagenheim is with us now from New York. Mike, despite that, Biden may meet Netanyahu in Washington after all.
Still to be worked out, still to be determined, Jacob. Talks apparently ongoing, reportedly, between the White House and the Prime Minister's office. But, they're always, the devil's always in the details in terms of where it's even going to take place. Will it take place at the White House or some other location in Washington?
He was considering maybe retiring from the race, and he denied that. And Democrats are coming out slowly but surely saying that he should. What's going on?
That's the billion-dollar question, what's going on. A lot of it still has to play out here. I think so much right now, Jacob, revolves around the polling, revolves around getting a pulse of the American public, what they thought of his debate performance, what it means in the medium and long term for his presidential prospects. I think it was too early to tell in the 24, 48, even 72 hours after that unsettling debate performance for the president. But now
let's move on. Israeli settlers attacked soldiers as they dismantled an unauthorized outpost in the West Bank today. At the same time, the government, under pressure from the far right, seems to expand settlement in the West Bank. I-24 News' Nicole Tzedek reports. The manhunt after Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar is now one of the biggest in the history of the Middle East. It is assumed he is hiding underground somewhere in the relatively small piece of land, which is the Gaza Strip. I-24 News' Emma Siegel has the latest from Gaza.
50 terrorist sites demolished in Gaza City's Sajaiya over the past day. Over 900 terrorists killed throughout the Rafah ground operation. These are the numbers the IDF has released in the past day.
In the Rafah brigade, what we've seen with our own eyes, and I don't want to say something out of thin air, we count over 900 terrorists killed, including commanders, at least one battalion commander, many company commanders, operatives. The current effort, and the reason we are working here week after week, is now focused on the destruction of the terrorist infrastructure and the destruction of the underground infrastructure, which takes time.
Israeli governments under Prime Minister Netanyahu have allowed and even encouraged Qatari funding of Hamas over the years. Recently, more and more documents surfaced detailing allegedly transfers of millions of dollars in the name of Netanyahu himself from Qatari leaders. The nature of these documents is not entirely clear, but there are growing demands in Israel to investigate. So Bastien Bory joins us from Dubai. Good evening, Bastien. What do we know so far about these documents?
Well, this is an investigation by the Middle East Media Research Institute, which is based here in the UAE, and it reveals a supposedly classified letter from then Qatari Prime Minister to then Finance Minister of Qatar, in which the former explains the decision of the Qatari Emir more than 10 years ago to transfer a grant of some $50 million to Benjamin Netanyahu.
Move to this. According to a New York Times report, President Biden told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu that if Israel would retaliate the Iranian missile attack in April, the U.S. would not support Israel. This is a very dramatic revelation, considering Israel was directly attacked by Iran, and the U.S. is obviously its closest ally. So we are joined by Gabriel Noronha, former special advisor for Iran at the State Department under Secretary Pompeo. Good evening to you.
Thanks for having me.
What does it tell you? A, these gentlemen, Biden and Netanyahu, have no trust whatsoever, or B, Biden is not willing to engage in a war with Iran under any circumstances?
Look, this is really unfortunate to be seeing. Back in World War II, President Churchill President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill had a lot of tactical disagreements, but you never, ever saw this aired out in the press. You didn't see the disagreements. You didn't see their call transcripts being leaked like this. Both sides are doing it, and it's really unhelpful. The only person this helps is the Iranian government, which gets to see the inside deliberations about how they can actually split the United States and Israel apart.
Turkey closed its main border crossing into northwest Syria after Turkish troops came under fire from Syrians. It's part of a growing refugee crisis. I-24 News' Emma Siegel reports.
A violent night in Turkey and Syria. Accusations that a Syrian man living in central Turkey abused a child erupted into overnight riots that targeted Syrian businesses in the Anatolian city. The Turkish Interior Minister said over 450 rioters were arrested, leaving in their wake overturned cars and businesses set ablaze. These clashes spilled over into Turkish-controlled areas of northern Syria, where hundreds of outraged Syrians protested against Turkey and the actions of its people. The Syrian border city of Afrin was the epicenter of the most violent clashes, with at least 4 killed in exchanges of fire between armed protesters and Turkish troops.
Let's go to the Maghreb. Tunisia's increasingly authoritarian leader has scheduled the next presidential elections for October 6th. Alisa Pavia from the Atlantic Council is with us. Good evening to you, Alisa.
Hi, it's great to be here.
President Said seeks another term after 5 years. Is this the same Tunisia from 5 years ago?
It is not the same Tunisia as 5 years ago, as you rightly pointed out in your discourse at first. He is increasingly authoritarian, and so even as experts look to the upcoming elections, they fear that very little is going to be fair and independent as of October 6th.
Now, an extraordinary experience from a man who travels in Asia. YouTuber Alec Pollard joins us now to tell about your special visit to the largest Islamic school in Indonesia. Alec, take us there.
Right. So this is the Al Zaitun school in Indonesia. It's about 5 hours away from Jakarta. We have over 8,000 students, not just from Indonesia, also from